Hello, my name is Dr. John Mason. Doing this recording in very early part of June of 2026. I have a question for you. Maybe you've never considered this, but I am going to ask you to think about what I have to say and whether it would be a good fit for you. Have you ever done a life review? Now, I don't mean just thinking back of what's been going on in your life, what your history is, where you were born, where you were raised, where you grew up, what you've done as far as work or relationships. I'm asking you to consider some of this is going to come from the history of stories from your family because stuff happened when you were very young that you might not fully consciously remember, but it happened to you. And I'm going to ask you to look from the perspective of how did you possibly survive all that you've been through? First, let me say you are a miracle. Your life has been amazing. Nobody else could have done your life the way you did. Nobody could have learned the lessons from your life that you have. The challenges, the pain, the successes, maybe even accidents or failures, the relationships you've had, your life has been unique. And I don't know how you've survived to the age that you are. And then magically, I think, found this video for you to consider. So I'm going to ask you from the perspective of how did you make the choices that you made in your life? How did you figure it out? How did intuition come into play? Like you guessed or felt like you needed to move in a certain direction. Everybody might have discouraged that, but you did. And there was important lessons to learn from it. Some of the lessons were what not to do, who not to be in a relationship with, what job never is good for you as an individual. Some of them have been the joys, the experiences, the travels of a lifetime, the adventures and the excitement that you've been through. But I'm going to ask you, what did you learn when you came to the fork in the road and you took the path, perhaps the path less traveled, the path that led you into the unknown that maybe at some level you were supposed to take? The deviation from what you expected or what was expected of you. Why did you turn left when you were commonly told or had the experience of always turning right? The reason why I ask you this is because I have been paying attention to a couple of things in the last few years of my life. I've had a chance to really read books and watch videos and meet people who have had near death experiences. These people may have had an experience where they died or thought they died and came back, but they came back from the experience with a trip or a travel to the other side of the veil. Maybe you haven't heard about that. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. Maybe you've had these conversations or seen the videos. One thing is common. Many people find that they transition, no matter how that is, in darkness, in a tunnel, in the light. They begin to move up to perhaps a higher realm, if you will. And one of the first things that they do is they unpack their history as a human life by doing a end of life review. And they go back and they see this is, by the way, this is not uncommon. I've heard it reported in many of these near death experience stories. And what plays in their head for them is everything that they've done and the perspective of everybody that they've touched and the interactions that they've had and the good or the bad that happened in these reactions. And it's more than just a linear progression. You get to see or to visit with how you impacted the people, how by doing it differently things might have changed, what each and every part or person in these experiences, what did they learn? What did they get out of that experience? And that's what I want for you. Without having a near death experience, without dying and going to the higher realms or passing out of this life, transitioning away from your human existence, I want you within your human existence to expand your consciousness. Perhaps take a look at the major events, maybe some of the subtle things that just seem to trigger a special moment where you learned something or you began to move in a different direction with your life. I can tell you from my personal experience that my life has been guided and protected. I have had support. I have had very interesting, sometimes near death accidents or experiences, and I came out of them. Not always not broken or not hurt, but I came out of them with a new lesson, perhaps some new challenges, and definitely a new perspective on how I can appreciate the energy at the time and the human life that I am living. For me, when I had a near death experience when I was 19, I was really comfortable with visiting whatever that realm of death and dying is. It was beautiful. It was calm and peaceful and loving and accepting and non-judgmental. No limitations of time or space. And I wanted to stay, and they told me, whoever they are, they said, no, you've got to go back. You've got things to do. You're I argued with them. I said, this is too nice. This feels too good. And they said, no, you have things to do. I didn't understand that at the time. I was 19. I was pretty dumb and naive and hadn't done anything. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I had done very little compared with what's happened for me in the last 55 years plus. I am glad I came back. I have met people. I have learned things. My consciousness has expanded. I have found ways of being of service to the people that I've come in contact with. And those are the treasures that I celebrate and I honor as successes in my life. I've had relationships. I had a marriage. My wife passed away. I learned an awful lot from the difficult things that we went through. And I learned from some of those other ways to be of service. Because if I could go through them, maybe I could help other people do the same, which I did, and I have done, and I will do. So I'm asking you to look at the good times and the difficult things. What was the lesson? How did you get guided into them and through those challenges and experiences? What did you learn from them? What stories can you share? What wisdom did you learn that you can share with other people that you meet as you travel the path through your human life? The reason why I ask is because I think it elevates you. I think it elevates your consciousness. I think that if you tell your stories even if you get some anger or frustration in them. But if you tell your stories and share your perspective, I think that you can learn more about those experiences by telling the story, and the wisdom that you share can be of service to the witnesses, to the people that you've found in front of you who seemed to be available and needed to hear about your life experience. Sometimes it's the simplest things. Sometimes it's pretty complex. Sometimes it was involved with critical things, life and death things. And sometimes it was a very simple experience. After my near death experience when I was 19, I was at UCLA at the time. I dropped out of UCLA. I needed to get away from UCLA, Southern California. Didn't feel right for me. I worked for 6 months, three different jobs, 60 hours a week, and I took off for Europe in September 1970. I turned 20 in Strasbourg, France, and I met people along the way that have become lifelong friends on those journeys. And one evening I sat in the study of one of the men that I had met, a student from Oxford. His name was Chris Bertram. And his father and I met in his study for about an hour. Chris had taken off to do some stuff, and his father, very non judgmentally, just asked me, "What are you doing?" And it changed my life because I was there in Europe at that time, not to be in Europe, but to be away from my life. I had run away to Europe to escape UCLA and Southern California and things that weren't a good fit for me. That seemed like to anybody listening like a mundane thing, but how was I guided to be Chris Bertram's house, to find my way into Chris Bertram's father's study, and to have Chris Bertram's father spend an hour with me and change my life? It did. I returned to California. Took me a while to travel back. And then I moved within 2 weeks. I moved to Northern California to Sonoma County, moved and lived in a city called Santa Rosa, California. And I spent the next 35 years of my life thriving, having relationships, finishing school, beginning a business, finding ways to serve and to learn and be in relationship with people that were nurturing and needed for me to grow up, for me to become more conscious. After 35 years, my wife wanted to retire and move to Washington, and we moved in 2005. So I've been in the state of Washington for now 21 years. It seems like a whole nother life. I moved to Bellingham in 2015, and my life changed. My purpose changed. I began to build a community. And these thoughts of how to develop consciousness, how to give people perspective and tools on some of the wisdom, some of the mistakes to avoid, some of the joys that I've had. And I've put community together so people can tell their stories. But today, I'm asking you, is it worth it for you to reflect on the major things, especially the change in directions that you've been guided to take, whether they were happy or whether they were real difficult and challenging, but you've learned from each and every one of them. And the people that you came in contact, they influenced you and you were of service to them by telling your story or just being who you are. And I think that by paying attention to how you connected with your guidance or your intuition to make those choices, I think that is a consciousness expansion process. I think for some of you who follow through on this, they may find ways of shedding light into the dark corners that have been your life experience. I'm going to say this again. You are a miracle. Your life has been amazing. I would even say that even with the hardships and the pain or the challenges, your life has been perfect because out of all of those experiences, good or bad, you have learned, you've become the person that you are, and you can be aware of that and grow even further and expand your consciousness even more. So I'm asking you, consider doing that life review. I've been working on mine. It's pages and pages of weird experiences that I've reviewed, some of the relationships that have come and gone, some of the heartbreaks that I've experienced, and I've learned from each and every one of them. My hope is that once you have those stories and thoughts, your consciousness expands, you connect with your intuition even better, and you find a way of sharing perspective with the other travelers that you meet on your path through this life. You're a blessing. You are loved. Whether you know it or not, you're not alone. Thank you for your time and your attention. Again, my name is Dr. John Mason. I'm the facilitator of Masters of the Journey. I work on the board of directors for the Tree of Life Sanctuary, which is another organization that helps people, supports people in developing consciousness and perhaps spiritual growth and development. I don't even know what else to say other than I don't know how you found your way here, but thank you. And I hope that this finds some way of being of service to you or the people that you might share this with. Thank you once again.